Hey guys, my guest tonight, Travis Watson, is going to tell us about the forest poltergeist. Be right back. Grab your popcorn and snacks. Find a comfy spot, take a seat or lie down, and let me transport you to a place of fantasy, ghost stories, ancient legends, odd creatures, alien encounters, and other magical topics. You may even decide to join the conversation. From faraway lands to your own backyard, with a small dash of pixie dust. Turn out the lights and open your minds. The journey is about to begin. Good evening, everybody. Happy Hump Day, Wednesday. Getting that much closer to the weekend. My name is Charlotte. I want to be your host for the next hour, and I'm also the owner of the California Haunts Paranormal Investigation Team based out of Sacramento. We are 45 strong up and down the state, which means if you do think you have a paranormal issue, we can come out there and help you, but it might take us a couple days because California is really huge. People don't realize that, but we are really huge, and we have it all here. We have our mountains, we have our farmland, we have deserts, you name it, we got it here. So it may take us a couple days, but don't fret. I'm sorry, let me lean it forward really quick. The foxtails are really bad this year. Yes, we have psychics on staff who can call you in the event that we can't get out there right away. And if it is a paranormal issue, more than likely they can get the energy to calm down until we get out to help you. But it never takes us more than 2 or 3 days to get there. So, rest assured. If you need to find us, just check us out on the web. We are everywhere. Just Google in. Excuse me, California Haunts Paranormal Investigation Team or California Haunts Radio, and you will find us. We are on all networks. Okay, now I'm going to do this as a blanket thing. If you're watching from Facebook, and a lot of you are, okay, please be sure to hit that follow button if you haven't done so already. And during the show, if you like what you see and hear, give me a thumbs up, a happy face, those heart thingies that I can't do with my hands. Do chat with each other in the chat room, because what that does is it puts us out on the master computers at all the social media places, including YouTube, and that gets the computer's attention, and it puts us out to more people to share. Okay. And the same thing goes for YouTube and all the other sites. I'm not going to mention the other sites. If you haven't subscribed YouTube yet, please be sure to do that. We're trying to reach that magic 1,000 mark. I'd really appreciate it if you could do that. And also over there, a thumbs up and all that good stuff. Okay. All right. My guest tonight is Travis Watson, and he's been on the show before, and it's been kind of cool. It's very cool, actually. And tonight we're going to be talking about the forest poltergeist. I've never heard of the forest poltergeist. So, this is what this show's about. It's for education and to learn about stuff. So while you're watching tonight, can I ask you to do something? If you have other people around, or you have friends that you think might be interested in this show, share it. Keep sharing it. We're trying to get the word out. That goes for the RSS feed as well. I was talking to Nancy Matz a little while ago about something that caught my attention. And I know some streamers over at the clock site. We'll call it the clock site. And some of them are doing battles, and one in particular that I know does a battle in his backyard in this tent. And it's funny because he has 2 ring lights. I use 2 ring lights. And I don't know if it's because his glasses are bigger than my glasses, because I had a panic attack before the show thinking that this was happening when I look at the screen. But when he looks at the screen, it looks like he's an alien. Or it looks like he's got like weird contacts in, because the 2 ring lights show up right on his glasses, right in the middle of his glasses where his eyes should sit. And it cracks me up every time. So just before the show started, I got into this panic about, are you guys seeing the ring lights when I look up? But you're not. I think it's the positioning of the ring lights and the fact that my glasses are like old-timey and smaller. Okay, that's over with. So let's get on with today, and let's get Travis on, and he can tell you a little bit about himself, and we're going to talk about the forest poltergeist. Here we go. Welcome back.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me back.
It's so great to have you back. I've been wanting to get you back for a while.
Oh, well, yeah, here I am. I've been keeping busy, believe me. It's anytime you put a book into print, you end up talking to a whole lot of people. So I have definitely been keeping busy. So good to hear from you and so good to be back.
Fantastic. So tell me about you for the people that haven't heard of you or don't know about you.
Okay, so I am an author, obviously. I've written actually 6 books in the paranormal field at this point. I started off a while back with Phantom Black Dogs, Walkers of the Liminal Way, which is about the black dog apparition.
Hmm.
That was followed by Mysteries in the Mist, which is a book on mist, fog, and clouds in the paranormal. Then I went Canadian because I moved to Canada in 2020. Um, I've done Canadian Monsters and Mysteries and Sasquatch Canada. And my most recent work is The Forest Poltergeist. I come from, I come by my weirdness honestly. My father was a UFO experiencer who told his story to me when I was probably 8 or so. And I have been fascinated with all things paranormal, whether it's ghosts, Bigfoot, UFOs, whatever. Been fascinated with all things paranormal since that age, and I'm 63 now, so it's been a long time. By the time I was 11, I had read Ivan Sanderson's book on the abominable snowman, which, if
Hmm.
you've ever seen it, is about this thick.
Yes.
Um, that that took me a while, but I got through it. So I've been fascinated by these topics for a very long time, and you know, I got to the stage in my life where I had a little extra time to spend putting together some works of my own, and here I am.
Fantastic. You know, the forest, and a lot of people don't realize that Canada, British Columbia, even parts of Northern California, it's thick. I mean, it's a huge, huge forest that we have, and a lot of stuff could be lurking around in there. Not well, including Bigfoot and whatever else might be lurking out there. When we talk about the forest poltergeist, what do you mean exactly?
So let me back up for a minute,
Okay.
because as you know, and I think our last conversation was about Sasquatch Canada,
Yes.
which was kind of that was my pay on to Class A sightings in Canada. And during the research for that, I discovered that there were Sasquatch sightings in almost every province in Canada.
Hmm.
I had been wondering whether it was just BC or whether it was all across the country, and it's all across the country. Um, so a Class A, when I talk about a Class A sighting, I'm talking about somebody who's actually laid eyes on a Sasquatch. They have had a visual sighting of a Sasquatch. Um, this book is about what Sasquatch researchers call a Class B encounter,
Okay.
which is very typically characterized by things like stone throwing, wood knocks, vocalizations. And I'm sure that your reader or your listeners have all, heard about all these various manifestations of things that happen out in the forest,
Hmm.
the
Hmm.
bipedal footsteps, all those kinds of things. Um, and I was talking to another podcaster some years ago when I was on tour for one of my books, and we were talking about this idea of Class B encounters out in the forest. And he made an interesting observation. He said to me, "Well, if you took all that stuff and you put it in a house, you'd have a poltergeist case."
Interesting.
And I was like, "Are you going to write that book?" To which he replied, "No, he didn't really have time to do that." I said, "Would you mind if I wrote that book?" And that's really where the forest poltergeist came to be. He tends to refer to it as the wilderness poltergeist. So I didn't want to steal his name.
Hmm.
I dubbed this the forest poltergeist. And you know, and as I started to do the research for this book, I realized that I was going to have to be really, 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 really nitpicky.
Hmm.
Um, because if you take uh, the research on Class B encounters, you look at all these encounters that people have. They can't really call them sightings because they don't
Hmm.
see a Sasquatch. They have these experiences of things being thrown at them and so forth, and assume there's a Sasquatch.
Mm-hmm.
Um, if you do a lot of research in that, you discover that this is a huge field. There's like tons and tons, literally thousands of these encounters. And of course, if you do research on poltergeist, which is probably more your area of expertise, um, you know that the psychical research on poltergeist goes back generations. As far back as Catherine Crowe.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that there is decades and decades and decades of poltergeist research to borrow from. So
Mm-hmm.
I had to, as I was doing this book, uh, be very succinct and very concise about what cases I looked at.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but what I found, and the reason that I call this the forest poltergeist, and subtitled it Class B Encounters in Paranormal, um, is that there isn't anything happening out in the woods that people are attributing to Sasquatch um, that couldn't just as easily be attributed to a poltergeist.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and before I go any further with that, somebody's going to go, "Whoa, there's Sasquatches out in the woods." Yes,
Right.
I will be the last person to say that there's no possibility that there is a physical creature out there. I live in Canada. Um, there are literally hundreds of thousands of square kilometers of habitat here that are rarely, if ever, seen by a human being.
Mm-hmm.
If I was going to hide a large bipedal primate someplace, it would be Canada. Um, there's just all kinds of room for a creature like that to live. So if there is a physical creature attached to the Sasquatch phenomena, I could see it living in Canada. However, when you start to look at all of these Class B encounters, all of these incidents where people are having things thrown at them, they're finding footprints, they're all of these things, other where they're not actually seeing this creature, but they're having these episodes out in the woods. You see, they're scattered all over the place, and and they're scattered into places where it would be very hard to hide a large bipedal primate.
Right.
You know, I mean, when you start talking about places like Arizona, I lived in Arizona for many years when I was younger. Um, and granted, there's some woodland in the northern part of the state, but
Mm-hmm.
in a lot of the areas in the southern part of the state where people are reporting both Sasquatch sightings and these Class B encounters, there's no place to hide a large bipedal primate. Um, so my feeling is that yes, there may be a physical creature, uh, a Gigantopithecus, if you wish.
Mm-hmm.
Um, however, I think there's a lot more going on than just a large creature wandering around. These beings are supposed to be very rare,
Mm-hmm.
and yet they're everywhere. And particularly these Class B encounters are happening everywhere. So I think
Mm-hmm.
there's something more going on out in the forest than just just a large bipedal primate slash ape, raising Cain because you're in his territory.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. This is a little fascinating to me. I understand now that I hear it. I do understand the concept. So, how did you go about put this stuff together for your book?
Well, uh, so like I said, I went down the rabbit hole,
Mm-hmm.
really, because on the one hand, like I said, there are literally thousands of Class B encounters on record.
Mm-hmm.
If you start to look at the databases for places like the Bigfoot Field Researchers Organization and other organizations that keep track of Sasquatch encounters, you'll find them everywhere. So there are tons and tons of those. I focused, because I live in Canada, I focused my attention on the Class B encounters that were happening in Canada,
Mm-hmm.
just to narrow things down, because the topic is so huge that it was going to be. It's entirely possible that I could have written a 2 or 3 volume set out of
Mm-hmm.
this. There's just so much data. So I narrowed down to more of the Canadian Class B encounters. And there's some really good ones, uh, including one that was on Monster Quest, the old TV show. If you remember that show,
Mhm.
that there was an episode that happened up in northern Ontario that had a Class B encounter as part of the show. So I narrowed things down there to more Canadian Class B encounters, and then I went to the psychical research and I started researching poltergeists, and I immediately got overwhelmed because there is so much material. I mean, like I said, psychical researchers have been writing about the poltergeist experience
Mhm.
um, for decades,
Mhm.
decades and decades and decades. There's just all kinds of things that you can uh, reference when you're doing research on poltergeist. Um, so what I did was basically I chose some of the more classic books like Colin Wilson's Poltergeist book.
Mhm.
Um, I referenced some of Catherine Crowe's work, you know, and one of the modern bloggers who wrote a nice piece on a poltergeist case that I cover in the book, and one by William Roll. Uh, and uh, you know, I tried to find cases that would be pretty representative of a lot of different uh, poltergeist manifestations.
Mhm.
Um, and then I dovetailed them. You know, I said, okay, so Class B encounters involve, and okay, fill in the blank.
Mhm.
So objects being thrown,
Mhm.
uh, or not. Let's do something that'll really get people going. Footprints.
Right.
Okay. Now everybody knows that one of the big items that quote unquote proves the existence of Sasquatch is tracks.
Mhm.
Okay. And again, I don't deny the possibility that there may be physical creatures leaving physical tracks. However, having said that, there are any number of researchers that, if you question them closely, will tell you that they found one track, okay,
Yeah.
or they found a trackway that led out into the middle of a cornfield and disappeared.
Right.
Or and we can go on and on.
Sure.
You know, so there's obviously tracks being found. And if you have people like Jeff Meldrum, very reputable anthropologist who has made a study of these things, and he is an expert on bipedal locomotion.
Mhm.
And he's done extensive analysis of these footprints, and he's gotten pretty good at telling the fake ones from the real ones, and that sort of thing. I
Mhm.
mean, there's no doubt that these tracks are being found and that they have characteristics that that seem to indicate a large bipedal primate.
Mhm.
Okay, great. Then people say, well, what, poltergeist can't do that. It's like, yeah, really. um I'm, I'm I always get my poltergeist cases bollocksed up when I start talking about them. So
Mhm.
if I
Mhm.
quote the wrong case, don't hold it against me.
That's fine.
But
That's
one of
fine.
the one of the one of the cases that I talk about in the book, and I believe it was the Black Monk case, Black Monk
Mhm.
Pontefract, which is in Colin Wilson's book. Um, Toward the end of that manifestation, the mother of the house is going down the stairs. And one of the things that happened in that manifestation a lot was water. They would get puddles of water manifesting in the house and that sort of thing. Mom was coming down the stairs. There was a runner that ran up to the very front of the house, to the front door, which was for whatever reason soaked. And as mom was standing there watching, she could see footprints being impressed into this soaked runner. She could see the
Mhm.
squishy footprints going up to the front door. So poltergeists make
Wow.
tracks too. You see the same thing happening in the Bell Witch case, where Bell Bell Jr.
Mhm.
This poltergeist was particularly chatty. Poltergeist actually told him uh, that it could make tracks just like his dead father, and then proceeded to make boot prints in the snow outside the home.
Mhm.
So poltergeist can make tracks too. Um, and you don't necessarily see anything making the tracks when it happens.
Mhm.
So this is one of those circumstances where people are really like this is the proof that Sasquatch is out there,
Mhm.
but you rarely ever hear of anybody seeing a Sasquatch
Mhm.
and then tracking it.
Mhm.
You know, now a creature that big, if you have some tracking experience, a creature that big should leave some kind of sign. If you see it and then you follow it, you should be able to find the sign.
Right.
But very often, that's not the case. In fact, oftentimes you'll see, even in a real strong Class A sighting where somebody actually saw a Sasquatch, they can't find the tracks afterwards. But then you have people who find trackways in riverbeds that go on and on and on and on.
Mhm.
Uh, so, but nobody saw the Sasquatch.
Right. Right.
So again, I'm not saying there's no physical creature, but I'm saying there's something more going on. And what we need to do is we need to uh, look at Sasquatch with more Fortean eyes. You know,
Mhm.
uh, one of the things, and this is something that I go on about all the time, so forgive me, but one of the things that happens is that people get into an area of research. Uh,
Mhm.
they become ghost hunters. They're interested in UFOs. They're Sasquatch researchers. They hunt dogmen. Whatever it is. Um, other strange creatures, cryptids,
Mhm.
um, and they stay in their area of investigation. They get into a
Mhm.
little silo. Yeah, and what they don't realize is that the information that other investigators are coming across might be useful to them in their investigations.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think that we need to crack the silos and need to start talking to each other across disciplines,
Mhm.
because there's a lot of stuff in, for instance, parapsychology and ghost hunting and so forth that could be very useful, I think, in the study of Sasquatch or UFOs for that
Mhm.
matter. There's a lot of spooky crap that happens around
Mhm.
around UFOs,
Right.
uh, that could very much be characterized as poltergeist type phenomena too. Um, but the UFO researchers are locked into the UFO,
Mhm.
particularly the extraterrestrial thing, and so everything has to be aliens.
Right.
Uh, we need to get out of the it must be X.
Mhm.
Instead of doing the either or thing, it must be this or it must be that. We need to get into the both and thing where it can be a lot of different things.
Mhm.
I could sit here and list off, 4 or 5 different things that could account for Class A Sasquatch sightings.
Right.
Um, ranging from the physical creature to some really wild magical stuff. So, you know, um, I just think that we need to crack the boundaries a little bit and start paying attention to what other investigators are doing.
Absolutely. And the other thing is, as you're mentioning this, I was thinking, when you talk about the Class Bs for Sasquatch, a bear is not going to pick up a log and throw it. A
No,
bear is not going to pick up a boulder or a big stone and throw it.
yeah. Now, a bear might leave tracks, and sometimes
Mhm.
those tracks will be mistaken for Sasquatch tracks.
Mhm.
But you know, again, bears don't throw rocks. They don't throw trees. They don't throw, they don't throw anything really.
Mhm.
Um, you know, uh, Bears don't stand around with big sticks and whack trees. you know, uh, Bears don't clack rocks together.
Mhm.
They do vocalize, but they certainly don't vocalize in the manner that we hear from things like the Sierra sounds.
Mhm.
Um, so I mean, I know that there was a hullabaloo in the Sasquatch community a little while ago about this fellow that did this study, and said, well, Sasquatch sightings correlate with areas where there are black bears. And the
Mm-hmm.
implication was that all of Sasquatch sightings, which is just a bear.
Right.
Now, if you read Sasquatch Canada, you'll see that this is a very common rationalization for sighting, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, there's one interesting sighting where a young indigenous kid was Manitoba, I believe. Um, it's been a while. He was out with his family. They were having a picnic. Uh, they'd gone swimming and they were gonna barbecue, or they were gonna roast weenies over the fire and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
He was getting hungry, so he was headed back to camp, and he had a Sasquatch sighting, which had some weird stuff attached to it. But um, he had a Sasquatch sighting. He, After he has this sighting of this immense bipedal primate type creature, he goes back to his campsite, and he's telling his relatives, "Well, I just saw this really weird critter in the bush." And they're like, "Ah, well, you saw a bear." He looked at him and said, "I know what a bear looks like. I grew
Right.
up out here. I've seen bears. I've seen bears in the wild. I've seen all kinds of bears. I know what a bear looks like. That wasn't a bear." Yeah. This same thing applies to people who've hunted in the bush out here all their lives.
Mm-hmm.
Police officers who've seen these things. I mean, we have witnesses of, Class A sighting witnesses who are unimpeachable. I have a story in Sasquatch, Canada about Canadian Forces soldier, the guy's a special forces person who had
Mm-hmm.
s- just a almost scary Class A sighting where he actually saw a Sasquatch take a deer. Um, so when these people tell me they saw a Sasquatch, I'm not going to question them.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's pretty obvious to me they didn't see a bear.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because they know what a
Right.
bear looks like. So that kind of false equivalence, rationalization stuff, what I call skeptebunking, um, is it really it doesn't serve any purpose other than to make the scientific materialists out there happy, because then they can go, I've explained it, we're done.
Mm-hmm.
But you haven't. You know, I mean, even if uh, you show that Sasquatch sightings correlate to black and brown bear areas,
Mm-hmm.
well, wouldn't you expect that a large bipedal primate would live in the same kind of biosystem as a large omnivorous ursine creature?
Mm-hmm.
I think so. You
Right.
know, if you can show that bears live there, then you've just proved that it's quite possible for a Sasquatch to live there. So I think they're talking out of both sides of their mouth.
I agree. I agree with you 100% on that. Um, when you started to look into these cases, I mean they're all over the books and TV, all over TV about, like you say, the knocking sounds and things being thrown and whatnot. How frequent do you think, after doing your research, how frequent of events is that to have something thrown like that?
Oh,
Um, Go ahead.
oh, sorry. I mean, if you look at, like I said, the databases, there are
Yeah.
literally thousands of these things. Now, some of them are, yeah, I mean, you have to take your Class B reports with a little bit of a grain of salt, because
Mm-hmm.
some of the people that are out there are not experienced woods people. They're not experienced outdoors people, and they mistake
Mm-hmm.
natural sounds for something else,
Mm-hmm.
for a Bigfoot. Uh, I mean, I've spent a good bit of time out in the woods. Like I said, I lived in Arizona for, so for quite a number of years, 13 years.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and, I've spent nights out in the desert and so forth, and heard sounds out there that, would have probably made most people go running for the bush. But I recognize that, oh, that's an owl.
Mm-hmm.
You know, uh, you know, by the same token, when you're talking about the forest, especially up here in Canada, I mean, there's all kinds of critters out here, and foxes make some really strange noises. Bobcats can make some really interesting sounds. We have owls up here that sound like raptors, like
Hmm.
the raptors from Jurassic Park. Uh, I think they're called hawk owls. They're creepy. It's really creepy because you hear the thing flying. You hear this sound and then it's flying towards you.
Hmm.
So there are all kinds of wildlife up here that can make some really interesting disturbances. But as you pointed out earlier,
Hmm.
owls and bears and other wildlife don't throw things.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
some of the things that people call vocalizations could be accounted for by wildlife. I think a lot of these howls and things that people are attributing to Sasquatch, or it's more wishful thinking they're hearing coyotes or wolves.
Hmm.
We have both up here, um, and some in between the coy wolves. Um, so those kind of vocalizations could be attributed to wildlife, but interesting note, uh, poltergeist cases also have uh, some interesting sounds that can be associated with them. Again, in the Black Monk case, they had, or maybe it was Enfield. It might have been the Enfield poltergeist case. They had at one point the poltergeist making barnyard animal noises in
Wow.
the living room. um,
Wow.
there is a case in Tyrrell's classic book on apparitions,
Hmm.
which kind of veering away from the poltergeist thing for just a minute,
Sure. Sure.
where where the witness was standing at a window and heard footsteps coming up to the window, and then heard a really really loud scream that really kind of set him back on his heels. Um, he The interesting thing about that is his wife was sitting in a chair in the corner and didn't hear a thing.
Hmm.
But this fellow's perception was that he heard this very loud scream. And this is all tied up in a ghost story about a tenant of his who had committed suicide that night and so forth. But the point is that these paranormal phenomena also make sounds.
Hmm.
Um, so some of this vocalization stuff that's happening out in the woods could just be the local poltergeist deciding,
Right.
hey, let's have some fun with this guy and see what kind of weird noises we can make.
And it makes sense when you say, like one person will hear it and the other person won't. That
Mhm.
happens even with ghost hunting
Oh,
when
sure.
you're out all
Yeah,
the
yeah.
time. Same thing with digital voice recorders. I mean, you could be running 3 or 4 digital voice recorders, and one might pick up the EVP where the other ones don't.
Yeah, and you were talking earlier about how you have some psychics on your team. You
Hmm.
know, you're those people who use those sensitivities oftentimes sense different things.
Hmm.
And what we have to understand is that the phenomena itself is multifaceted.
Hmm.
And just because one psychic is saying, well, I'm seeing this or I'm hearing this or I'm feeling this, and another is saying something else, doesn't mean they're wrong or canceling each other out. It means
Hmm.
they're picking up two different aspects of whatever the phenomena is going on in that particular area.
Hmm.
um, so yeah, I mean, it's very much the case that uh, again, as I said, there's nothing in these class B encounters that people are experiencing out in the woods that you can't explain, uh, both with a bipedal primate and
Hmm.
with a paranormal phenomena like the poltergeist. We don't know what a poltergeist is either. I
Hmm.
spend half the book talking about what the poltergeist could be. um, we don't know what a Sasquatch is. We don't know what a poltergeist is. It's all a
Hmm.
mystery, but that's the fun part of doing this stuff.
Hmm. Hmm. Have you had the chance to go on any expeditions or anything like that, or even camp out to hear the sounds or whatever?
Oh yeah, I've been out. I don't go on expeditions really. I find it very difficult to deal with people who um, are already convinced that one thing is the way, and that is the only way that one can think about this stuff. I haven't had as much opportunity to go out in the woods here in Canada.
Mhm.
I got here in the middle of the pandemic, so you know, there wasn't much traveling happening during that time period, and I've been super busy between writing and I have a day job too, so
Mhm.
I'm hoping to get some time off this summer and be able to spend some time out in the woods here. I did a lot of time in the woods when I lived in Western New York,
Mhm.
which is where I had some of these experiences like the hawk owl that sounds like a velociraptor and
Mhm.
the coyotes and those kinds of things. It's you know the only way to really get good at identifying sounds in the woods is to spend some time there.
Mhm.
Um, like I said, when I was in Arizona, for instance, there were very particular types of, uh, for instance, there were burrowing owls that lived in the cacti in the area that I lived in, and you could often hear them, and they'd be flying around, and it'd sound like there was like, ah, like this
Mhm.
this this strange, kind of, you almost associate it for like ghosts,
Mhm.
like the Scooby Doo ghosts that ran around, woo, they had this very strange call, and they'd go flying around the hill at night, and you'd hear this call going all over the side of the hill. It'd really freak you out if you didn't know what it was. Um, like I said, there's the owls, there's the foxes make curious rabbits even
Mhm.
when they're when they're being chased and or eaten, unfortunately, make a screaming sound, which is quite spooky. So really, I recommend anybody who's interested in Sasquatch, spend as much time out in the woods as you can, because that helps you develop a database
Mhm.
so that you recognize when things really are weird. And yeah, I mean, there are strange things that happen out there, just like there are strange things that happen everywhere else.
Well, I know my dad would always tell the stories about the loons. He was in the U.S. Coast Guard during World War II, and he was patrolling the beaches near Kitty Hawk, North Carolina. And of course, everything was on blackout, back during World War II.
Sure.
And he says he would hear these loons, and it sounded like women
Oh
screaming.
yes, 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 yeah. We have loons up here in Canada.
Mhm.
I have not had the opportunity to hear them yet,
Mhm.
but I understand that they make a very unearthly sound too. So I mean, again, you want to establish your database.
Right.
You want to
Right.
find out as much as you can. A good example of this: when I moved to when I first moved to Canada, one of the things that kept me from going insane during the pandemic was
Mhm.
taking my dogs out, right? Because I could at least get outside. I was walking my dogs one morning, and I heard the weirdest sound. And I was like, "What in the heck is that?" It was a sound unlike anything that I had heard before. It was the nearest thing I can think of to describe is kind of like metal ratcheting. Okay. Like a squeaky hinge combined with maybe like a ratchet
Mhm.
wrench or something like that.
Mhm.
Could not figure out what the heck that was. So I filed it away in the back of my head, um, and I actually, again, I was walking the dogs. I heard the sound again. It's like,
Mhm.
okay, it's got to be something around here, right? Eventually, I figured out that it was the local crows. The crows in the area had developed a call that I had never heard before. And I have lived with crows and ravens half my life. I'm pretty familiar with the kinds of sounds they make. But this particular, uh, they call it a murder of crows, this group of crows, I don't think they had murder on their mind. They were quite nice, actually. Um, this group of crows had a very particular sound that they made that I had never heard before. And I think it was unique to that particular group, or maybe to that area of
Mhm.
Canada where I was at the time. Um, so, you gotta, gotta have your database so that you know when there is something strange going on.
Mhm. What did you think of the Sierra Sound?
you know, I'm always. I know that that Ron Moorhead and the folks uh, that recorded those sounds record. I feel that they recorded them in good faith.
Mhm.
Um, they're certainly strange, and the some of the research that I've seen on it, some of the crypto linguistic stuff, there's a theory that there's actually a language there.
Mhm.
And, again, this is prime Sasquatch territory. There have been a number of sightings in that area, and I believe that they had sightings while they were there. Um,
Mhm.
uh, so I'm not discounting the
Mhm.
Sierra Sounds at all. I think they make a good baseline,
Mhm.
kind of something to compare other sounds to.
Mhm.
But again, it's like DNA evidence, right?
Mhm.
You may collect something and you may send it for analysis, and it may come back as an unknown primate or something, but that's all you're
Right.
going to get.
Right.
You can't say it's a Sasquatch because we
Mhm.
don't have Sasquatch DNA to compare it to.
Mhm.
In the same way, these sounds are fascinating. They're very interesting. Um, and certainly something that we should pay attention to. But I can't say for sure that it's a Sasquatch because, number of Sasquatches because
Mhm.
we don't really know what Sasquatches are,
Right.
and we don't know what they sound like, really. Um,
Mhm.
all of these people that are on all of the shows who are telling you, oh, well, Sasquatches do this and oh, Sasquatches do that. Okay. All right. In your experience with a lot of witnesses, that might be the case.
Mhm.
But Sasquatches also do things like making a noise on somebody's front porch. This happened in Pennsylvania. This is a Stan Gordon case. I love Stan
Mhm.
Gordon because he sets things on their heads all the time.
Mhm.
Uh, Lady sitting in her living room, she's watching TV. She hears a sound out on the porch. She's like, "Oh, so those feral dogs again." Scoops up her shotgun, walks out the front door, turns on the light, and there's a freaking 7 foot tall Sasquatch standing on her front porch. The Sasquatch looks at her. She looks at the Sasquatch. The Sasquatch throws its hands up like it's surprised.
Mhm.
She thinks she's being attacked and shoots the Sasquatch with the
Uh-oh.
shotgun, and it disappears in a flash of light. That
Wow.
that is not a bipedal primate, kids. This is not a physical creature, right? Um,
Wow.
yeah, and
That's
Stan Gordon
incredible.
goes on to detail Sasquatch as being seen in association with UFOs and stuff.
Right.
And if you read Tim Renner and Joshua Cutchin's books, where the footprints end, or where the footprints end,
Mhm.
there's all kinds of anomalous stuff that's associated with Sasquatch. Um, Again, that doesn't prove that there's not a physical animal, but there's
Mhm.
something a whole lot stranger going on there too.
Mhm.
And we need to pay attention to both aspects of this. And that's the primary thrust of the force poltergeist. I go through, because I point out we don't know what a Sasquatch is really.
Mhm.
We don't know what a poltergeist is either. And I talk about all the different, for instance, human-based models of of the poltergeist. The most popular one being the RSPK theory, the
Right.
recurrent spontaneous psychokinesis, where
Mhm.
there's a focus, which is often the case in a poltergeist case. There's a focus, and the theory is that they're repressing emotion,
Right.
uh, and and that instead of acting out, they're having what Lloyd Auerbach calls psychic temper tantrums,
Mhm.
which manifests as this poltergeist activity. I don't know if I completely buy that. Um, I see RSPK as being kind of like kindling on a fire. And you have somebody who's putting out a lot of energy and probably attracting a lot of other energies into the
Mm-hmm.
area.
Mm-hmm.
And so this thing snowballs. Um, there are talk about at least one person who theorizes that poltergeist cases actually follow an arc.
Mm-hmm.
Where they start off small with scratching noises and those kinds of things, and then build to crescendo of all the stuff flying everywhere and glass shattering, all that fun stuff, and then wind down. Excuse me. So, it's very much the case that you know that we have, again, all of these poltergeist phenomena that can be related to these Class B encounters, and make and when we start to look at what might be the causes for some of these poltergeist encounters, or Class B encounters, and poltergeist activity, then we get into a whole realm of mystery,
Mm-hmm.
including the human dead. I think that it's entirely possible that some of this Class B activity could be caused by ghosts. And I talk about that in the book too.
Um, when you look at this on the whole, and I agree with you, I think there needs to be cross examination between the different investigators, like you say, ghosts and UFOs and stuff. That should be happening, because you hear more and more about these cases. Just like with the aliens, some of that stuff sounds paranormal to me.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, John Keel. I think it was the Mothman prophecies, and this isn't in the book. This is just off the top
Right,
of my
right.
head.
We're just
Uh,
yeah,
we're just talking.
yeah.
John Keel talks about a case in the Mothman prophecies where farmer had a UFO sighting outside of his farmhouse, and then promptly had poltergeist activity in the house afterwards. Right? So these things seem to be related.
Mm-hmm.
You know, um, one of the things that I keep saying is, we need to get out of these silos and look at the broad range of things. And if we do
Mm-hmm.
that, um, we'll find that the world is a lot larger and more mysterious place than we thought it was.
Well, what
Well,
got me to what got me to thinking about this whole alien thing, about what I do as a paranormal investigator, is a particular book I read called the Mojave Incident. And after these people get abducted, they become contactees. The things that happen afterwards sounds just like a typical ghost case that my team will go on or that people report, where
sure.
it gets really cold in the room
Mhm.
and these beings will come through the walls, or the people don't see them and they feel like they're being touched, but it's really cold in the
Mhm.
room. And that got me to start rethinking what I do as a paranormal investigator.
Sure. What I was going to say. I had a thought, and then
Sorry,
I got going on something else,
my
and I
bad.
forgot what it was. It wasn't your fault. It was my fault. It's my rusty brain. It's been a long day already. What I was going to say though is I would love to see a ghost hunting group, paranormal investigators, go on, an outing in the woods,
Hmm.
and go and investigate one of these sites where a Class B encounter or even a Class A encounter has occurred,
Hmm.
and see what kind of uh, evidence, or see what kind of readings, what the psychics have to say, all of that stuff. See what this group had to say about that particular area.
Hmm.
Um, because I mean, I talk about all kinds of different things that could explain the poltergeist phenomena, ranging from, like I said, the more human end of things to the human dead, to the fair folk, to uh, thought forms, and on and on. There's all kinds of things that could explain these phenomena, in addition to a large bipedal primate tromping around in the
Hmm.
woods. Um, and I'd love to see a paranormal team say, hey, let's go tag along with the Bigfooters and see what happens.
Hmm.
I mean, what do you got to lose, right?
That's true. That's true. There was another gentleman. I think he was from either up Northern California or Canada, who had what he said. And I'm not saying this is true or what. I can't remember the guy's name, but he'd been on the show, and he had other vocals from Bigfoot,
Hmm.
from what he thought was Sasquatch, and they
Sure.
sounded more human. But like you
Hmm.
say, it's an inexact science. It's like what I do.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, in the the I was talking about the gentleman that was in Canadian Forces, a soldier in the Canadian Forces, is
Hmm.
special forces guy. He had actually two encounters. One of them was a Class A encounter where he saw a Sasquatch actually take a deer. The other was a Class B encounter where he was working security around the campsite. They were camped out. They were doing training,
Hmm.
um, and he was hearing uh, what he thought at first was a person speaking Japanese in the woods,
Yes.
but it was just garbled enough to where he couldn't understand what they were saying, or he
Hmm.
could make out the words, right? Um, of course, this guy goes out and challenges them, and it goes quiet, and then the talking starts up somewhere else, and so he played hide and seek with this thing for a little bit,
Hmm.
whatever it was. But again, you know, could be a Sasquatch.
Hmm.
I mean, it was definitely, it was prime Sasquatch area in Canada. It was up in northern Ontario, which is,
Hmm.
rife with, uh, it's boreal forest, and there's all kinds of habitat for any kind of a large critter. Um, but we just don't know. I mean, he could have been having he could have been having a poltergeist encounter too. We just don't know.
But it's
And that's
interesting because when you talk about it sounding Asian, that's close to what the Sierra sounds
Yeah,
like.
yeah, yeah. They talk about the samurai chatter
Yeah.
as being a part of the Sierra sounds, in addition to a
Hmm.
lot of other really strange, really
Hmm.
strange vocalizations. So, it's certainly the case that uh, whatever this phenomena is,
Hmm.
um, likes to make interesting sounds out in the woods. And again, we could be talking about a bipedal primate. We could be talking about something more mysterious.
Hmm.
Either way, it's awfully fun to try and track it down and see what it is, right?
Right. Right. Are you the kind of person like I am? You go out to the woods for a hike, and your first reaction is, "I'm here. Come, let me see you. Come get me."
Yeah, yeah. No, I have a very animistic philosophy of life anyway, so I'm very convinced that there's a spirit to almost everything,
Hmm.
and so when I go out in the woods, it's you know I, I'm more than happy to sit down and just kind of, I guess you could say, talk with whoever happens to be around.
Hmm. Hmm.
Haven't run into any Sasquatches, but that may just be because I'm not in the right place to do that. But there's all kinds of, I mean, if you've ever sat and spent any quality time with with an ancient tree, it's
Hmm.
it's an interesting experience. So I'm open to those kinds of experiences. Um, you know, if I were to see a Sasquatch, I think that I probably would have one of the more mellow encounters because I'm not wandering around in the woods with a gun for
Right.
one thing.
Right.
Um, and I go into any wilderness area with an attitude of respect.
Hmm.
And if I get the feeling that I shouldn't be in a place, I leave.
Hmm. Hmm.
This has happened to me a couple of times. The most notable was in Arizona. I was up in the Superstition Mountains, which is Apache holy ground. Um,
Hmm.
it is the home of their thunder gods, and it is an interesting place energetically. Um, I was I confess I was bushwhacking, which I shouldn't have been doing, which means I was walking off trail.
Right.
Um, but I wandered into a little side canyon, and almost as soon as I walked into this place, my perception is that it became darker and
Wow.
I got cold, which it's a desert. It's not
Mm-hmm.
cold,
Mm-hmm.
but I felt cold. And whether the temperature actually dropped or I was just having that perception, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and the hair stood up on the back of my neck, and everything in my body said, "You need to leave." Um, Now, I understand that when those kinds of things happen, I've run into an energy that I'm not resonating with.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm not vibrating at the same frequency that whatever this is. I don't think of it as being evil. It's just disharmonic.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't harmonize with me. So I was like, okay, I got the message. I backed out of the place, and as soon as I cleared the canyon, the sun came out again, and I was warm.
Wow.
So whatever lived in that canyon didn't appreciate me being there, and I was fine with that. You know, I mean, I think that the reason that some people have negative experiences is because they don't pay attention to those
Mm-hmm.
warning signs. They don't appreciate the gift of fear, what Gavin de Becker calls the gift of fear. They keep going, and then they wander into something that they're like, "Oh my God, what is that? There's black dogs running around back here or something."
Right.
Um, so uh, yeah, I'm very much a believer in, you know, like I said, De Becker, he's an expert in executive protection
Mm-hmm.
and has written a book on, uh, paying attention basically to your intuition, which he sees as your subconscious uh, picking up signs that you're not consciously aware of,
Mm-hmm.
and then going, no, 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 you want to get out of here, you want to get out of here right now. He says, you get that feeling, you should pay attention to it, because he's got dozens and dozens and dozens of case studies who didn't, people who
Mm-hmm.
didn't, and ended up being assaulted and so forth. um, you need to pay attention to that gift of fear when you do
Absolutely.
this kind of work, because I mean, you walk into a house and you have that, that hair raising in the back of your head. you
Mm-hmm.
you realize that you're not harmonic with whatever's in that home,
Right.
and you need to do something to uh, work with that feeling if you're going to stay there.
Mm-hmm.
And that's going to vary according to the situation. But
Absolutely. Travis, it's always fun having you on.
yeah, and we always get off on the wildest
Off we
tangents.
go, right? Every time, right? But it's fun, right? I mean,
It's
we
all
have a
right.
lot of
Yeah, it's
fun.
like, hey, let's talk about John Keel tonight. Okay, that sounds like
off,
a good
we,
time.
off we go. What's next for you?
Um, I'm kind of taking a break right now. I've written 6 books since 2020, and
Wow.
I'm taking a little break. I'm doing some work on some fiction stuff that I've been meaning to get to for a while.
Uh-huh.
And so I may be publishing a novel or two here in the near future. Um, and I'm also noodling with another paranormal project, so we'll see. I'm not driven to complete that right now,
Hmm.
but I'm sure that as I go along, I'm going to be gathering more tidbits to put in the book. So you can expect to hear from me again, and you know, probably around this time next year.
I love having you on, so let's do it.
All
What's your
right,
date?
thanks
What's
very
a date?
much.
All right, sir. And how can people find you?
Okay, so I'm actually, my two main social medias. I've kind of given up on Twitter, honestly. um, my two main social media things are Facebook and uh, Instagram. On Facebook, you can find me at WT Watson author page,
Hmm.
or if you'd like to, to follow me personally, I'm Will Watson. Easy to find. I'm the guy with the bright red coat in the staff. It's a
That's
picture I had taken in Japan when I was up on Mount Fuji. That's my cover photo.
that's
Um,
awesome.
on Inst, yeah, I love that picture. It's one of the. I'm not. I don't like having my picture taken.
Hmm.
Um, I was with a group of people who were friends, and so I was more relaxed. And this picture actually came out okay. Uh, it, most pictures of me look like they were taken shortly before the death of the photographer. But, on Instagram, I use an old handle that I developed before I started writing. That's Curunir, Curunir 60.
Okay.
So you can find me there. Um, my books are all available on Amazon. They are available as paperbacks if you wish. They're also available on Kindle. And if you happen to be a Kindle Unlimited member, you can read them for free. So you can't beat that.
That
And all
works.
of those things help me.
Thank you. Terrific. Well, thank you so much for coming on again, and we'll have you on again sometime.
No, thank you for
If,
having
that,
me.
if that's
Take
okay
care.
with you, we'll get you back here.
All righty.
All right. You have a great one.
All right. Take care.
Okay, bye bye. All right. Again, it's so fun to learn stuff, and I love picking his brain. He always has some really cool information about things. Tomorrow we're kind of making a switch. I have a doctor's appointment on Friday at 4:30, and so it might be hard for me to get back here in time to do a live show. So tomorrow I had planned on a pre-recorded show with Bob Frizell to talk about the world order, the new world order. But unfortunately, I don't. Like I said, I don't think I'm going to make it back on Friday in time for Nancy's show. So Nancy Matz is going to come on tomorrow at 6:30 p.m. Pacific, and we'll be talking about, you know, what kind of ways can we hear and listen to ghosts. Okay, so that's going to be our topic for tomorrow. Yeah, I'm just making sure. Yeah, reading it. So join us tomorrow at 6:30 p.m. with live show with medium Nancy Matz, and then the Bob Frizell show will be on Friday at 6:30 p.m. instead. Okay, just wanted to put that out there. Okay, if you like the show, share it with 5 people. If you hated the show, share it with 5 of your enemies. We are always equal opportunity here at California Haunts Radio, just trying to get the word out about our shows. If you are into meditation and you like to meditate, I have started a meditation club that I offer meditations 3 to 4 days per week, and they're usually the one for the Pacific time people are after the show at 7:45 p.m. Pacific, or I will do a mid-afternoon thing at 3:30 p.m. If you're interested in that, head on over to the California Haunts Meetup site. Click on events and you'll see all the stuff for that to sign up. It's really cool. You get to end your day really mellowed out. And become one with the universe, right? So we're talking one with the universe. So it sounds like something you'd be interested in. Like I said, head on over to the California Haunts Meetup page. Okay, guys. That being said, we are done for the night, and I will see you guys tomorrow at 6:30 p.m. Pacific with medium Nancy Matz. Have a fantastic evening, everyone.